The second I stepped into the ballroom, I knew I didn't belong there. Not in the way Nyla wanted me to. My name is Amir. I'm 38 years old. I live in Philadelphia and work as an architect, mid-sized firm, quiet team, good projects. I've never craved attention, never needed to show off. But tonight wasn't about me. It was about appearances. The charity gala was held at the Arland, one of those high-end hotels downtown with marble columns and live string quartets playing music no one actually listens to. Nyla had been talking about it for weeks. Anyone will be there, she'd said, as if rehearsing for a magazine quote. She'd even texted me my seating info earlier that day like it was an afterthought. Table 14. I showed my ticket to a greeter in a tuxedo, who led me past a sea of glass flutes and shoulderless gowns until we reached the table. That's when I saw it. Table 14 was off to the side, near the restrooms, 3 tables removed from the main cluster. From her. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe they shuffled seating. But then I saw her, Nyla, glowing under the lights at table 2 with her 3 closest friends. Daria the influencer, Carmen the real estate queen, and Layla the political whisperer. All of them beautiful, styled to perfection, and not one of them looking in my direction. Nyla caught my eye briefly. She smiled. Not a warm one, just the kind you give someone who parked your car. I sat down, alone at table 14, next to an older couple who were halfway through their soup and clearly didn't know who I was. I tried to smile politely, nodded, then glanced back toward Nyla. She was laughing already, head tilted back a little too far, hand resting on Daria's arm. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I knew that laugh. It was the one she used when she wanted to show she was in. Eventually, she waved at me, again, not warmly, and made her way over. She kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "Hey babe," she said. "Hope you don't mind. I just thought you'd be more comfortable here. You always say you hate small talk." I glanced at the table she came from. "You mean with your friends?" They're talking work," she said quickly. "Politics, market stuff. You'd be bored." I didn't answer. I wasn't bored. I was insulted. She gave a tight smile, then turned and walked back, heels clacking. The others looked over as she sat down again. I caught Layla whisper something. Then all 3 women looked at me and chuckled, like I was the joke. I took a sip of champagne. Warm. 10 minutes later, Nyla and her trio came by again, on their way to the art installation or whatever. They stopped near my table. Nyla barely acknowledged me, but the others did. "So you're the architect," Carmen said, eyeing me like I was a museum exhibit. "That's adorable." I opened my mouth, but Daria cut in. "I love that you're okay letting Nyla shine. That takes confidence." Layla added with a smirk, or humility. Either way, it's refreshing. They moved on before I could respond. Nyla didn't even flinch. 5 years ago, she would have snapped at anyone who spoke to me like that. Now, she just laughed along. That's when I realized I wasn't her partner tonight. I was a prop, a placeholder, and I was starting to wonder just how long that had been true. I didn't plan to rejoin the group. I honestly thought I'd get through the night by sipping warm champagne and avoiding attention. But an usher came by and told me my wife had requested I be moved closer to the main circle. I followed him across the room, wondering if maybe I'd imagined it all, that maybe she realized what she'd done. I should have known better. She smiled as I approached, tight, performative. "There you are," she said, as if I'd wandered off. She didn't even scoot her chair to make room. I had to grab a stool and squeeze in beside them. Daria, Carmen, and Layla were in the middle of some conversation about a hedge fund guy who'd just been indicted. They barely acknowledged me until Nyla gestured lazily and said, "You remember Amir." "Of course," Carmen said, turning to me. "The quiet husband with the quaint job. How's architecture these days?" "It's doing just fine," I replied, keeping my voice even. "People still need buildings." Layla snorted into her glass. "No, but really, it must be kind of peaceful, not having to chase cloud all day." Nyla's lucky. Most men wouldn't be comfortable fading into the background. That one hit a little too square. I turned to her, slowly. "You mean most men wouldn't tolerate being ignored while their wife played hostess to people who mistake cruelty for charm?" The table went quiet. For half a second, I thought I'd gone too far. But Nyla forced a laugh and waved her hand. "Oh, come on, Amir. Don't be so sensitive. You know they're just teasing." Were they? Because the next one came sharp and quick. Daria leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. You know what I admire most about you, Amir? You don't need to impress anyone. You're just so secure in being simple. It's rare. Simple, I repeated, nodding like I was hearing a new word for the first time. Well, I'd rather be simple than artificial. Again, silence. Nyla's smile didn't budge, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Okay, she said, her voice sing-songy. Let's not turn this into a debate. Carmen chimed in, twisting the knife. All I'm saying is, it takes real humility to let your partner shine. Especially when she's, well, you know. She gestured vaguely at Nyla, who pretended to blush. Especially when she's what? I asked. You know, she said again, as if the meaning should be obvious. Out in the world. Leading. Making waves. And I'm in the back, holding the purse, I said. No one laughed. I looked around the table. Their expressions had shifted, less smug now, more alert, like I'd stopped playing the part they'd written for me. That's when I saw it. This wasn't spontaneous. It was a routine, a dance they'd done before, probably with other husbands. Maybe with each other. Only this time, Nyla had decided I could be the punchline too. And she was fine with it. That was the part that stung. She used to shield me from people like this. Now she was nodding along, smiling through it. Like I'd become useful only as a contrast, her backdrop, her proof that she'd made it. And I was just the man who made the payments. I stayed because I wanted to believe it couldn't get worse. I stayed because I thought maybe, just maybe, Nyla would feel the shift in my posture, the coldness behind my smile, and realize this wasn't a game anymore. But she didn't. She kept laughing. Daria was the next to jab. She leaned in, swirling the olive in her drink, and said, I just love that Amir doesn't care about status. It's rare, you know? A man who doesn't need to be known. I tilted my head. Is that what you call it now, being unknown? Oh, don't be defensive, she said, eyes glittering. It's refreshing. You're so grounded. Like, you're not worried about followers or TED Talks or any of that. I'm an architect, I said calmly. My work doesn't go viral. It stands for 100 years. That's enough legacy for me. That shut her up. But Carmen picked up where she left off. What's the average salary for architects these days? She asked, as if she were actually curious. I heard they work like dogs and make, what, low six figures? I mean, not bad for someone who still draws on paper. Low six, I said, nodding. Sometimes high, depending on the project. Not as glamorous as flipping condos and staging listings with fake fruit bowls, but I sleep well. The corner of her mouth twitched. She didn't like that. Good. I mean, we're just teasing, she added quickly, sipping her drink. It's not like you care about that stuff. Your vibe is more. Honest labor, simple tastes, that whole thing. I stared at her for a second. You say simple like it's a flaw. Layla, the political one, finally stepped in. Oh, come on, she said. You know what they mean. You're reliable. Consistent. The kind of guy who makes coffee every morning, pays the bills, and never causes trouble. Not every woman wants that, but Nyla? She chose steady over, exciting. That was it. My hand was steady as I set down my glass. I suppose exciting means someone like your ex-husband, right, Layla? I said. The table went still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. I just said it like I was mentioning the weather. Wasn't he the one who crashed his car into a fence and then tried to blame the valet? Or was it the time he got caught with his coworker and still expected you to campaign with him afterward? Her smile cracked. Barely. I'm just wondering, I added, if exciting is really all it's cracked up to be. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Carmen looked down. Daria sipped her drink like it might teleport her elsewhere. And Nyla? She didn't say a word. She didn't lean toward me. She didn't even blink in my direction. She just glared, like I was the one who'd embarrassed her. Not them. Not the slow dismantling of my dignity they'd been orchestrating all night. Me. She finally spoke. Amir, she said, her voice sharp and low. That was unnecessary. I turned to her. So were the last 30 minutes. She looked like she wanted to scream. Instead, she forced another smile and tried to salvage the moment. Let's not turn this into something, she said quickly, nodding at the waiter who was approaching. People are watching. I looked around. She was right. A few nearby tables had gone quiet. Eyes drifted over. One man raised an eyebrow and looked away. Good. Let them watch. Let them see the quiet husband fight back. Because for the first time in years, I didn't care how polished it looked. I wasn't here to make anyone comfortable, least of all her. It was Daria, of course, who broke the silence. She tilted her head, that artificial smile still clinging to her face like gloss that wouldn't wipe off. "Amir, sweetheart," she said, drawing out the word like it had an echo. "You really need to calm down. You're being a little fragile, don't you think?" And there it was. That word. I felt it hit like a slap I'd seen coming. Before I could respond, Nyla leaned in and touched Daria's arm, as if she were trying to slow her down. But then she said, barely above a whisper, "He's just tired. He doesn't usually act like this." No defense, just a polished excuse. I turned to her. "No, Nyla, don't smooth it over. You've been waiting for this." She blinked. "Excuse me." "This whole evening," I said, loud enough now that the next table had stopped pretending to be uninterested, "has been one long, slow ambush. And you were in on it." Nyla stiffened, her jaw tight. "Keep your voice down." "Why?" I asked. "So you can keep pretending I'm some supportive accessory while your friends insult me like it's part of the entertainment?" Carmen's chair creaked as she leaned back. "Nobody's insulting you. You're just being overly sensitive." "Sure," I said, "because calling someone simple and quaint and treating them like the family Labrador is all very highbrow humor." Now the nearby tables were fully watching. The servers slowed their movements. A few donors paused mid-bite. You could feel the attention shifting like gravity in the room. Nyla hissed through clenched teeth. "Sit down. We'll talk later." "No, we won't," I said. I stood up, calmly, without drama. But I made sure my voice was clear. "You staged this," I told her. "You wanted your friends to see how evolved you are. How magnanimous you are for keeping around the quiet architect with the blue-collar soul. You've been feeding them stories, haven't you?" Her eyes narrowed. "You're humiliating me." "No," I said. "You did that when you sat me 3 tables away and introduced me like I was your landscaper." She stood now too, lowering her voice into a desperate whisper. "Stop. This is not the time. You're embarrassing yourself." "I don't think I am," I said. "Actually, I think I'm seeing clearly for the first time in years." There was a silence that seemed to stretch from one chandelier to the next. Even the music had started to taper off, the quartet slowing into hesitation. Then I reached into my jacket, pulled out the checkbook I'd brought to cover our table's donation, the one Nyla had assured me she'd match next time. I set it gently on the edge of the table, looked her in the eye, and said, "You can pay for the table out of your jewelry." She gasped. "You're done?" she whispered. "I am," I said. And then I walked. Not quickly, not dramatically, just with purpose. I walked past the faces that had pitted me earlier, past the ones that had smiled too wide. I walked through the crowd like I'd walked out of a building I'd just finished designing. Complete. Behind me, I heard chairs scrape and Nyla's voice, some fractured apology forming. But I didn't stop. For the first time all night, I didn't feel small. I felt like a man who had finally pulled himself out of someone else's performance. And I wasn't going back. The second the valet handed me my keys, I drove. I didn't think about where I was going, just away. Away from the glittering ballroom, from the frozen stairs, from Nyla's hollow eyes as I walked out. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't broken. It was still, heavy but steady. Somewhere on I-76, I heard my phone vibrate in the center console. I ignored it. Then again. I pulled into a Wawa parking lot and let the engine idle. My hands sat on the wheel, unmoving, while the screen lit up over and over. First, a flurry of texts. "Nyla, what the hell, Amir? Come back here." "Nyla, you're being dramatic. You embarrassed me." "Nyla, where are you?" Then the tone shifted. "Nyla, look, I didn't mean for it to go that far. You caught me off guard." "Nyla, we'll talk later. Just please come back so we can finish dinner." I chuckled, low and bitter. She really thought I'd turn around. Like I was just having a little moment. Then came the missed calls. 6, then 10, then 14. Some from her number, some unfamiliar. I guess she was borrowing phones from her friends as they passed around champagne and damage control. Then the messages turned desperate. "Nyla, Amir, they're bringing the check. I didn't know it was going to be this much. Did you already write the donation slip?" No reply. "Nyla, Amir, I need you to call the foundation. They're saying the table sponsorship is under your name." No reply. Then the kicker. "Nyla, you didn't sign the check. I told them I had it covered. They're asking me how I plan to pay tonight. I can't. Do you want me to beg?" That made me laugh. A real, full laugh. I leaned back against the headrest and let it echo in the dark cabin of the car. She hadn't noticed the small print on the check slip. I'd filled out everything, except the signature. The number, the table number, the foundation's name. But no signature, because even before I stood up and said it out loud, I'd already made the decision. I wasn't going to fund her charade anymore. My screen lit up one last time. Nyla, I had to ask Carmen to cover the table. She's furious. They're all talking. You really did this to me? I watched the message fade into silence. That was the one that finally made it click. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I went too far. Not, are you okay? Just, you did this to me. I put the car in drive. The road ahead looked different now. Wider somehow. No more charity events. No more fake smiles. No more being someone's accessory in a room full of people who mistook cruelty for class. I'd left a marriage, and all I felt was air in my lungs. The call came the next morning. Blocked number. I let it ring twice before answering. Not because I was curious, because I already knew who it was. Amir, Daria snapped. No greeting, no pleasantries. Are you proud of yourself? I exhaled through my nose and leaned back on the couch, mug of coffee still warm in my hand. Good morning to you too, Daria. You humiliated her. You humiliated all of us. At a charity gala. Did I? I asked calmly. Or did I just stop playing along? She scoffed. It was a joke. Banter. God, you're so sensitive. That's the problem with men like you. You take everything personally. No, I said. I take humiliation personally. There's a difference. There was a pause on her end, long enough to make me picture her pacing around her kitchen in silk pajamas, phone pressed to one ear while she tried to compose her next performance. You've always been so rigid, she finally said. You could have laughed with us. It wasn't malicious. It was strategic, I said. Don't dress it up like it was spontaneous. You knew exactly what you were doing. Every jab was measured, rehearsed, delivered with a smile. She tried to laugh, but it came out clipped. Oh, so now we're villains? What? We plotted to take you down at a charity event over shrimp cocktails. You didn't have to plot it. That's the worst part, I said, standing now, pacing. You've been doing this for years. You and your little circle, cutting people down for sport and calling it sophistication. And Nyla's right in the middle, acting like I should be proud to be your punching bag. That's unfair, she said quickly. Is it? I asked. Because you sat at that table last night and mocked my work, my personality, my life. And when I responded with facts, you called me fragile. You overreacted. That's what this is really about. You didn't like being teased, so you blew up and stormed out like a man with dignity. I interrupted. You call it a storm out. I call it a boundary. She was quiet for a beat. Then came the attempt. Well, whatever it was, I hope it was worth it. Because Nyla's a mess. She hasn't slept. She's embarrassed. She trusted you. I smiled to myself, cold and quiet. No, Daria. She used me. And so did you. Her voice hardened. You think walking away makes you powerful? All it does is show you can't handle strong women. I laughed then, really laughed. No. What it shows is I can handle truth. And I'm not interested in staying in rooms where cruelty gets excused as personality. She started to say something else, but I didn't care what it was. I pulled the phone away from my ear, scrolled down, and blocked her. I stood there, phone in hand, the silence settling in around me like fresh air. One voice down. 2 more to go. It was close to midnight when the call came in, another unknown number. This time I answered without thinking. I already knew whose voice I'd hear. Amir. Nyla. Softer than I expected. No edge. No control. I had to borrow Daria's assistant's phone, she said. You blocked mine. I said nothing. I know you're upset, she continued quickly. I just need you to hear me out. She was talking fast, the way she did when she was trying to make a deal, when she still thought charm could fix what she broke. I never wanted things to go that way, she said. It just got out of hand. They were joking too much, and I didn't know how to rein it in without making it worse. I took a breath, steady and slow. You didn't even try, I said. She didn't deny it. I didn't want a scene, she said. It was a public event. I needed it to go smoothly. I panicked. I let her talk. Let her twist. Carmen and Layla, they're just intense. That's how they are. Daria's always pushing boundaries. They weren't being cruel. That's just how they joke. They do it to everyone. They don't do it to each other, I said. Just the people they think won't fight back. A pause. I didn't realize how bad it looked, she offered. I see it now, and I should have said something. I should have stopped it. You used to, I said, before their approval started mattering more than my dignity. She sighed. That's not true. It is, I replied. And if you really didn't mean to let it happen, then why did you smile through every insult? Why did you seat me at a different table? Another pause. Then, almost too quietly, because I didn't want them to think you were the center of attention. There it was. Honest. Ugly. She wasn't sorry I left. She was sorry I left in front of people. Nyla, I said, do you even hear yourself? You didn't protect me because you were protecting your image. That's not fair, she snapped, finally slipping. You're making this bigger than it is. It's exactly as big as it needed to be, I said. It was never about a table or a joke or a gala. It was about respect. And you lost it somewhere between the first fake laugh and the last empty apology. I still love you, she said quietly. I don't doubt that, I answered. But love without respect is just convenience. She didn't respond. You said you needed people to see you as polished. Perfect. Untouchable, I added. Now they do. And you got there by stepping over me. Please, she whispered. But I was done. I hung up. No rage. No yelling. Just a click, and the silence that followed. It wasn't just the end of a phone call. It was the end of pretending. The call came the next afternoon. A local number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. I was already in the mood to finish what needed finishing. Amir, came the voice. Clipped. Controlled. Redhead tones. Layla. Of course it was. Before you hang up, she said quickly. Just listen. I leaned back in my desk chair. Go ahead. She exhaled like she'd just finished dealing with someone else's crisis. I've been trying to stay neutral, but I can't ignore how impulsive this has all become. You're throwing away a marriage over one bad night. I smiled to myself. There it was. The rallying cry of the enabler. It wasn't one night, I said. She ignored that. Look, I get that things got tense, but you embarrassed your wife. In front of donors, friends, partners. There were consequences. There always are, I replied. But you're forgetting there were consequences long before I stood up. She huffed. You know what I mean. Nyla shattered. You humiliated her. She humiliated herself, I said. I just walked out. You didn't just walk out, she said. You made a public spectacle. You burned it down. I lit a match, I said calmly. The structure was already rotten. There was a pause. Then she switched tactics. Do you have any idea what this looks like? A man storms out of a gala after a few jokes. Blocks everyone. Leaves his wife scrambling. You think that makes you look noble? I don't care how I look, I said. That's your game. That was Nyla's game. I'm not in it anymore. She sighed, clearly irritated now. It was teasing, Amir. Banter. You could have rolled with it. Strong men can take a joke. I sat up straighter. No, I said. Strong men don't absorb cruelty just to prove they're not weak. They know when they're being weaponized. You're being emotional, she shot back. And you're being blind, I said. If the roles were reversed, if my friends talked down to Nyla all night while I smiled and let them, I'd be crucified. She'd have every right to walk out, and you'd be the first one to hand her the lighter. Layla went quiet. So I kept going. You said it was just one night. But what about the months she's been changing? The way she started rewriting who I was in rooms full of people like you? The way she started apologizing for me without using the word? She was under pressure, Layla offered weakly. So was I said. The difference is, I cracked with honesty. She cracked into someone I didn't recognize. More silence. Then she tried one last time. You really think this is worth ending everything over? No, I said. I think this is what ends things when everything real is already gone. She sighed again, softer now. Like maybe she finally understood I wasn't budging. I thought you were the quiet one, she muttered. I was, I said. But you all mistook silence for submission. I waited a second, then ended the call. No yelling. No hanging up in anger. Just a clean goodbye to the last person clinging to a broken narrative. It was never about one night. It was about everything that led to it. And every excuse that followed. I got home just before sunset, and for the first time in years, I didn't head for the bedroom I shared with Nyla. I walked straight into the guest room, shut the door, and exhaled. Not out of exhaustion, out of relief. A quiet kind. The kind you feel when something heavy finally slides off your back. Then I got to work. I opened my laptop and pulled up the contact for my lawyer, David, someone I hadn't needed in years, but always trusted. I sent him a message. We need to talk. Starting paperwork. Then my accountant. I wasn't worried about money, not really, but I wanted everything clean. No surprises. No loopholes. While the email sent, I opened a blank document and began writing out the details of the gala. The seating arrangement. The jokes. The phone calls after. The donations. The unsigned check. All of it. I didn't want to forget any of it. Not because I was afraid I'd lose the facts, but because people like Nyla had a way of reshaping truth when things unraveled. I wasn't leaving any room for that. An hour in, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Nyla's sister, Farah. Farah, hey, I don't know what's going on between you two, but Nyla's saying you completely overreacted. Can we talk? I stared at it for a minute, then replied. Me? Sure. Let me give you a quote from the night. Me? He's not the kind of guy you bring into a room like this, but he's useful. Me? Imagine your husband hearing that from your friends while you smile and sip champagne. There was a pause. 3 dots. Then nothing for 5 minutes. Then she replied. Farah. She really said that? Me? She didn't correct them. I left it there. A few minutes later, another message came in. Farah, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was like that. That was the closest thing to validation I'd gotten from that family in a long time. And it told me everything I needed to know. Nyla was already spinning the story, and her version was slipping. I sat back in the chair, fingers laced behind my head, and stared at the ceiling. Not out of indecision, but out of clarity. For years, I'd sacrificed pieces of myself in quiet increments. Said nothing when I should have spoken. Swallowed insults because I thought loyalty meant silence. I thought being the steady one meant being the invisible one. But all that ever did was teach people how to erase me without guilt. Not anymore. I turned off my phone, saved the document, and shut the laptop. Tomorrow, I'd start the paperwork. Tonight, I was just a man who stopped tolerating being slowly erased and finally picked up the pen. By 2:45 a.m., my phone had rung 23 times. Unknown numbers. Texts from Nyla's friends. One message from Carmen that just said, unreal. Another from Daria, you'll regret this. She needed you. Needed me. Not wanted. Not loved. Not respected. Just needed. I didn't reply. I'd already silenced notifications, but the buzzing continued like a dying mosquito, annoying but powerless. I left the phone face down on the kitchen counter and walked through the apartment with the lights off. I didn't need to see the furniture to remember what every room had cost. Not just in dollars, but in compromise. For years, I had let the walls close in, inch by inch, disguised as luxury. Our home looked polished in every corner, but so did a museum. I wasn't living in it. I was being displayed inside it. I passed our bedroom door without a glance and stepped into the guest room. The one Nyla used to roll her eyes at, calling it bare, boring, a waste of space. Tonight, it was mine. I dropped my bag on the floor and peeled off my jacket. No folded pajamas, no essential oils, no nightstand tray with curated decor. Just a lamp, a quiet clock, and a plain bed with no memory of the woman who'd built her life on performance. I sat down slowly, let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, and felt the mattress dip beneath me. Just enough to notice, but not enough to fight it. Then came stillness. No one to perform for. No one to appease. No one waiting for me to minimize myself for the sake of the room. The weight of finality didn't feel heavy, it felt earned. Tomorrow I'd begin the logistics. The documents. The division. The calls with David. The numbers and signatures on numbers. The unraveling of a life built on illusion. But tonight, I was just a man in a quiet room with no one asking him to shrink. I turned off the light. The phone buzzed once more out in the kitchen, but I didn't move. It could wait. They could all wait. For the first time in years, I had nothing to explain, no apology to frame as a compromise, no self-worth to beg for in exchange for peace. I lay down. The sheets felt cold, but clean. And as I closed my eyes, I didn't think about what I'd lost. I thought about what I'd finally stopped giving away. Respect. Space. Silence. Myself. Sleep came quickly. And this time, no one was waiting on the other side of it to pull me apart again. This time, I slept like a man who knew he wouldn't go back.